I survived 2 tours overseas only to be cornered by my own dog on my mother's porch. He wasn't growling at me. He was growling at the air coming from under the door. That was the moment I realized my mother hadn't died alone in that house. And if I turned the key, I was going to be next. If you've ever felt a warning before you understood it, stay with me. And if a dog has ever protected you when your heart was already breaking, tell me in the comments. This is why people subscribe here. I'll recount this carefully, the way it happened. The house hadn't changed. Same peeling paint on the porch rail. Same dent in the screen door where his mother's grocery bags used to bump it every week. Even the wind chimes were still there, tapping softly like they were keeping time for someone who never came back. The veteran parked at the curb and sat in the silence longer than he meant to. His dog jumped down first, then stopped. Didn't sniff, didn't circle, just stood at the base of the steps, staring at the front door. "Easy," the veteran murmured, voice rough. "It's okay." It wasn't. The dog took one step forward, then froze again. His ears pinned back. A soft whine slipped out of his throat. High, strained, wrong. The veteran felt it then, that familiar pressure in his chest, the one he thought belonged to grief. He reached for the door. The dog barked, sharp, urgent, and lunged to block him. That was the moment the veteran realized this wasn't about memories. Something inside that house was still happening. The veteran pulled his hand back from the door, not because the bark startled him, but because of the sound that followed it. The dog didn't settle. He stayed planted between the veteran and the door, body angled just enough to block the handle, head low, ears pinned, a thin whine vibrating in his throat like something he was trying to hold back. "Hey," the veteran said softly, "it's just the house." The dog shook his head once, a sharp, frantic motion. Then he pawed at the ground and barked again, short, urgent bursts that echoed down the quiet street. The sound felt too loud for the neighborhood, like it didn't belong there. The veteran glanced around instinctively, curtains drawn, cars parked and unmoving, a stillness that pressed in on him from all sides. He tried the sidestep instead, moving away from the door just to see if the dog would follow. The dog did, but only halfway. Then he turned back toward the door and barked again, louder this time, circling once before stopping in the exact same spot as before. Blocking. The veteran felt the hairs rise on his arms. This dog had been through gunfire, through sirens, through crowds and chaos. He had never reacted like this to a building. "All right," the veteran said quietly, forcing calm into his voice. "Show me." He knelt and rested one hand on the dog's shoulder. The muscles beneath his palm were rigid, locked, not trembling. This wasn't fear, it was urgency. The dog sniffed hard at the bottom of the door, then recoiled and sneezed. He whined again and pawed at the frame. The veteran leaned closer and caught it. A smell, faint but wrong, sweet, metallic, gas. His pulse jumped. His mind shifted instantly, grief pushed aside by clarity. He grabbed the dog's collar and stepped back. "Good boy. Stay." The dog resisted for half a second, just long enough to make his point, then followed, eyes never leaving the door. The veteran looked up and down the street again. No movement. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. No signal. The dog barked again and pulled toward the driveway, then turned sharply back toward the house and barked once more, as if connecting dots. "Someone's inside," the veteran whispered. The dog froze, then growled, low, sustained. The front doorknob turned, just a fraction. The veteran felt his breath catch. He took 2 steps back, positioning himself behind the dog, heart pounding now, not from fear, but from the weight of how wrong this was. "Who's in there?" he called out, voice steady but loud. No answer. The doorknob turned again, farther this time. The dog lunged forward, slamming his shoulder into the door with a heavy thud that rattled the frame. "Back!" the veteran shouted. The latch rattled. A muffled cough came from inside. The dog's growl shifted immediately, lower, focused, and he stopped barking. He pressed his nose to the seam beneath the door and inhaled sharply, then whined again. Urgent. The veteran moved to the window and wiped dust from the glass. What he saw made his stomach drop. A man lay on the floor near the entryway, pale and shaking, one arm stretched toward the door. A portable heater lay tipped on its side behind him, the gas line hissing faintly where it had come loose. The dog barked again, frantic now, and pawed at the door. Jesus, the veteran breathed. He shoved the door open just enough to grab the man's arm, and immediately felt the burn in his lungs as the gas hit him. The dog surged forward first, placing himself between the veteran and the stranger, growling not at the man but at the space around him, as if the air itself was the threat. "Easy," the veteran coughed. "He's hurt." The dog didn't relax, but he shifted, allowing the veteran's space to work while keeping his body positioned protectively. The man wheezed. "Didn't mean to break in." "Don't talk," the veteran said sharply. "Can you move?" The dog barked again and turned his head toward the street, toward the open space. The veteran understood. He grabbed the man under the arms and dragged him back, step by step, out of the house and onto the porch, coughing hard now, eyes watering. The dog followed close, circling once, then planting himself between the house and the two men. Guarding. The veteran hauled the man farther from the door, onto the grass near the curb. The man collapsed, gasping for air. "You saved me," he rasped. The veteran shook his head, lungs burning. "My dog did." Behind them, the hiss from the house grew louder. The dog barked again, loud, sharp, and snapped his head toward the house, then toward the street. Urgent. The veteran stared at the front door of his mother's house, the place he'd come to grieve, and realized the dog hadn't just stopped him from walking inside. He'd stopped him from dying in the doorway. The veteran stayed crouched on the grass, one hand braced on the ground, the other hovering near the man's shoulder in case he tried to move. The dog stayed standing. Between the house and both of them. He didn't bark now. He didn't growl. He watched. The hiss from inside the house grew sharper, clearer, like something breathing the wrong way. "Stay with me," the veteran said to the man on the ground. "Keep your eyes open." The man nodded weakly. I thought it was empty." The dog snapped his head toward the house again and let out a single bark. "Warning, no," the veteran said quietly. "We're not going back in." He reached for his phone again and moved a few steps down the sidewalk, angling it toward the nearest intersection. 1 bar. He hit call. Nothing. The dog suddenly barked twice and stepped sideways, blocking the veteran from drifting closer to the porch without realizing it. "Okay," the veteran muttered. "Good catch." He backed up again. The man coughed violently, chest heaving. The veteran shifted him onto his side the way he'd been taught years ago, steady, practiced movements. "You're going to be all right," he said, even though he didn't know that yet. The dog circled once, sniffed the man's jacket, then returned to his position. Eyes locked on the front door like he was waiting for something else to happen. And then it did. The heater inside the house tipped the rest of the way over, not with a crash, just a dull clunk. The dog barked immediately, louder now, muscles tensing, body lowering into a ready stance. The veteran felt his heart spike. "What is it?" The dog lunged forward 2 steps, then stopped short of the porch, barking sharply, refusing to cross the invisible line. A click followed. Soft, mechanical. The veteran's stomach dropped. The heater's igniter. "Get back," he snapped, grabbing the man's jacket and dragging him farther down the lawn, away from the house, away from the door, away from everything that could go wrong. The dog followed close, then spun back toward the house, barking furiously now, like he was trying to intimidate the building itself into holding together. The veteran hauled the man behind a parked car and crouched low, shielding him. Seconds stretched. Nothing happened. The click didn't repeat. The hiss continued. The dog barked again, then abruptly stopped. He tilted his head, listened, then barked once more and sprinted toward the neighboring house, stopping at the edge of the yard and barking hard. Directed now, calling. The veteran stared for half a second, then understood. "You're trying to get help." He waved his arms and shouted, "Hey, anyone!" A curtain twitched across the street. The dog barked again, long and loud this time, until a door opened and a man stepped out, eyes wide. "What the hell's going on?" Gas leak, the veteran yelled. Call it in! The neighbor didn't hesitate. He ducked back inside. Sirens wailed in the distance less than a minute later. The dog returned to the veteran's side and sat, not collapsing, not shaking, just sitting, working. Firefighters arrived fast, faster than the veteran expected, and the street filled with controlled movement. Meters came out, radios crackled. Evacuate the block, someone shouted. The dog barked again when a firefighter moved too quickly toward the porch without checking first. Easy, the firefighter muttered, stepping back. Dog's right. They shut the gas off from outside, ventilated the house, declared the immediate danger contained. Only then did the dog finally relax enough to lie down. The veteran sat beside him on the curb, hands shaking now that there was space for it. One of the firefighters approached. If your dog hadn't stopped you, the sentence didn't need an ending. The veteran nodded slowly. He warned me. The firefighter looked at the house. Looks like that leak's been building for a while. The dog lifted his head at that, ears forward. The veteran noticed. What do you mean? The firefighter hesitated. I mean, this didn't start today. The dog stood and stared back at the house. That was when the veteran realized something else. The dog wasn't done yet. The street felt different once the danger was contained. Not calm, just quieter in a way that made the wrong details stand out. The firefighters rolled hoses back into trucks. Neighbors stood in small knots, whispering, pointing at the house, then at the dog. Someone brought a blanket for the man who'd been dragged out of the doorway. An ambulance idled at the curb. Lights off but ready. The veteran sat on the edge of the sidewalk with his elbows on his knees. The dog didn't lie down. He stood again, facing the house. He's still alert, one firefighter said under his breath. The veteran nodded. That means we're not finished. The firefighter glanced at the gas meter, then at the dog. Leaks shut off. Place is vented. The dog growled softly, not aggressive, not loud, unsettled. The veteran followed his line of sight and noticed something he hadn't before. The back window. It was open. Not broken, not forced, open. That wasn't like that, the veteran said. The firefighter frowned. You sure? I grew up here, the veteran replied. My mother never left that window open. The dog barked once, sharp, confirming. A police cruiser rolled up moments later, lights washing the house in red and blue. An officer stepped out, taking in the scene quickly. What have we got? Gas leak, the firefighter said. Dog stopped him from entering. The officer nodded, then looked down at the dog. Good boy. The dog didn't acknowledge him. He kept watching the house. The officer noticed. He's still tracking something. The veteran stood. There was a man inside. Said he thought the place was empty. Where is he now? Ambulance, the veteran said. But that's not what's bothering him. The officer followed the dog's gaze to the open window. You think someone else has been in there? I think, the veteran said slowly, that my mother wasn't alone when she died. The words tasted wrong in his mouth. The officer's expression tightened. You're saying you think someone broke in? The dog growled again, longer this time, and took 2 slow steps toward the yard. The veteran felt his chest tighten. She told me she'd been hearing noises. At night, I thought it was loneliness. The officer nodded once. We should take a look. They approached the house carefully, stopping well short of the porch. The dog moved with them, but not ahead. He stayed half a step in front of the veteran, body angled protectively. Inside, the house looked exactly the way it always had. Family photos, the old couch, the smell of dust and memory. But something was wrong. Drawers in the hallway table were open, not rifled, just open. The dog barked and moved toward the kitchen, nose low, tracking something the veteran couldn't see. Hold, the veteran whispered. The dog stopped, then pointed his nose toward the back door. Scratches marked the frame. Fresh. The officer swore under his breath. Someone's been using this place. The veteran's throat closed. While she was alive, the dog whined softly just once. They moved into the kitchen. The heater lay tipped over near the wall, gas line disconnected deliberately, not accidentally. The officer crouched to examine it. This wasn't a fall, he said. This was done. The dog barked again and snapped his head toward the pantry. The veteran's pulse jumped. What is it? The officer drew his weapon slowly. Stay behind me. They opened the pantry door. Inside, sleeping bag, cans of food, a flashlight. Someone had been living here. The dog growled low, steady, vibrating through the small space. The officer straightened. We need to expand the search. Outside, the sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long across the street. The neighbors had gone quiet again. Watching now instead of whispering. One of them stepped forward hesitantly. I saw someone coming and going late at night, she said. Didn't think anything of it. The veteran swallowed hard. My mother called me 3 weeks ago, said she felt like she was being watched. The dog barked again, angrier now, and pulled toward the backyard. The officer nodded. Let's go. They followed the dog around the side of the house. At the fence line, the bush stopped dead, stiffened, then sat. Not tracking, not guarding, holding. What is it? The veteran asked quietly. The dog stared at a patch of disturbed dirt near the fence. Boot prints, fresh, leading away. The officer crouched, trail still warm. The dog looked back at the veteran. And for the first time since they arrived, the look wasn't warning, it was grief. The veteran felt his eyes burn. This didn't just almost kill me, he whispered. It killed her. The dog stepped closer and pressed his body into the veteran's leg. Steady, grounding. The officer stood. We'll find him. The veteran nodded slowly. The dog didn't look away from the trail. He wasn't done. He was waiting. The yard emptied slowly. Neighbors drifted back to their homes. Firefighters packed up. The ambulance pulled away with a low, steady hum. The house stood there again, quiet, familiar, wrong. It was just the veteran and the dog now. The officer lingered at the gate, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in clipboard phrases. The veteran barely heard him. His attention had narrowed to the feel of the dog's shoulder against his leg. The weight of it, solid, present, real. You can sit, the veteran murmured. The dog didn't. He stood close enough that the veteran could feel the warmth through his jeans. Not guarding the house anymore. Guarding him. The officer returned. We've got units canvassing. That trail won't stay warm forever. The veteran nodded, eyes still on the back window. She told me she heard someone, he said quietly. I told her to lock the doors. I told her I'd come when I could. The dog lifted his head at the sound of his voice and nudged his hand gently, like he was asking him to breathe. I should have come sooner, the veteran whispered. The officer didn't interrupt. The veteran stepped onto the porch for the first time since arriving. He moved slowly, deliberately, waiting for the dog to object. The dog didn't block him. He followed. Inside, the house smelled like dust and lemon cleaner and something else underneath, fear that had been held too long. The veteran paused in the doorway and closed his eyes. Okay, he said softly. We're here. The dog walked past him and stopped in the hallway. He turned his head once, checking the veteran's position, then continued, straight toward the back bedroom, his mother's room. The veteran's chest tightened. Hey, he said, voice rough, you don't have to. The dog stopped and looked back, waited. The veteran followed. The bedroom looked the same. Bed neatly made, a cardigan folded on the chair. The window cracked open, just an inch. The dog went to the window and sniffed once. Then he turned and lay down beside the bed. Not alert, not tense. Finished. The veteran's knees gave out and he sat on the edge of the mattress. He pressed his palms into the quilt, breathing shallow, eyes stinging. She was scared, he said more to the room than the dog. I hear it now, in everything she said. The dog rested his chin on the mattress and let out a long breath, the kind that comes when vigilance finally releases. The officer appeared in the doorway. We found him. The words didn't land right away. Where? The veteran asked. 2 streets over, the officer said. Sleeping in a shed. He admitted to breaking in, admitted to messing with the heater to keep warm. The veteran stared at the floor. He knew. Yes, the officer said, and I'm sorry. The dog stood and walked back to the veteran, pressing his body close again, grounding him in the moment, in the room, in what was real. Outside, the sky darkened. Porch lights flicked on up and down the street. One by one, life resuming, cautiously. The officer left them alone. The veteran stayed in the bedroom until the light was gone from the window. He didn't cry loudly. He didn't break. He just sat there, one hand resting on the dog's neck, feeling the steady pulse beneath his fingers. "You tried to tell me," he whispered. "You tried." The dog's tail thumped once. Later, they sat on the porch steps together. The night air was cool, clean. The danger had passed, but the weight remained. The veteran stared at the door, the same door he had almost opened without listening. "Thank you," he said finally. The dog leaned into him just enough. In that quiet, with the house behind them and the street breathing softly around them, the warning became something else. Not fear, truth, and the truth hurt. But it was alive. The house didn't feel dangerous anymore. It felt tired, like something that had been holding its breath for too long and was finally allowed to let it go. The veteran stayed on the porch as night settled in fully. Streetlights flickered on. A distant car passed. Somewhere down the block, a screen door slammed and laughter spilled out. Ordinary life continuing, unaware of how close this place had come to ending differently. The dog lay at his feet, not asleep, just there. The officer returned once more before leaving for good. "They're taking him in," he said quietly. "He confessed." Full statement. The veteran nodded. "Thank you." The officer hesitated, then looked down at the dog. "If he hadn't warned you," the sentence stopped short. The veteran finished it softly. "I wouldn't be standing here." The officer nodded once and left. When the street finally emptied, the veteran stood and opened the door again, slowly, deliberately, listening to the dog as much as to the house. The dog didn't block him. He followed. Inside, the lights stayed off. Moonlight filled the hallway in pale stripes, touching old picture frames and familiar corners. The veteran moved room to room, not searching, just acknowledging. He paused at the kitchen table. His mother's chair was pulled out slightly, like she'd stood up in a hurry. The dog stopped beside it and sniffed once. Then he sat. The veteran closed his eyes. "I didn't know how scared you were," he whispered. "I thought you were just lonely." The dog leaned into his leg, grounding. They slept there that night, not in the bedroom. On the living room floor, wrapped in blankets, the dog pressed close enough that the veteran could feel every breath. For the first time since getting the call, sleep came without jolting him awake. Morning arrived gently, sunlight through dusty blinds, birds on the power line. The house still standing. The veteran made coffee and stood at the sink watching steam rise, feeling something inside him settle. The dog walked the perimeter once more. Routine, calm, then returned and lay down. Finished. Later that day, neighbors stopped by again. Quiet words, awkward kindness. Someone brought a casserole. Someone else offered to help fix the window. Everyone said the same thing. "You're lucky your dog was with you." The veteran didn't correct them, because luck implies chance. This wasn't chance. This was attention. Weeks passed. The house was repaired, locks replaced, windows sealed. The danger removed. But the veteran stayed longer than he planned. Some nights he sat on the porch and talked out loud, to the house, to the air, to his mother. The dog always sat beside him, steady and silent, like he understood that this was part of the job too. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the street gold, the veteran looked down at the dog. "You weren't warning me about the house," he said quietly. The dog's ears flicked. "You were warning me about her." The dog leaned against him. That was the answer. The veteran stayed a little longer after that, long enough to listen when something felt wrong, long enough to stop rushing past the quiet signals, long enough to understand that grief doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits behind a door, and sometimes the only thing that stops you from opening it is a dog who loves you enough to refuse. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you that the warnings we ignore hurt the most, subscribe so stories like this don't go unheard. And tell me in the comments, would you have listened when your heart was already breaking? He came back to say goodbye to his mother, but his dog made sure he didn't join her.